You are listening to 89.7 FM KSVG Savage Radio, City of License, Mettler, California. Hello, America, California, Bakersfield, Oildale, the street corner. This is the Earl Parsons Project. I am Earl Parsons, Oildale's golden son, a DJ here at Savage Radio. You might know me during the day as JD Dyslexic. This is my talk show. I got a lot of fun stuff planned for you guys. Our special guest tonight is Anthony Siino from the Sacramento News and Review. And we're going to have a man with a very silly name. What is his name? Garren from La Galerie Sandwich. And a representative of Real Sandwich Artists Against Subway. We're going to find out his deal. He's going to be a lot of fun to find out about. I'm going to tell you all about who I am and why you should be listening to this show right now a little bit later. But first, I'm going to get into some of my favorite music of 2014, if you guys don't mind. This is starting off with Parquet Courts here on Savage Radio 89.7 FM, Bakersfield's only community radio station. 89.7 FM, KSVG, Savage Radio. Welcome to the Earl Parsons Project. I am your host, Earl Parsons. I will be your fearless leader for the next 2 hours of this Saturday night. It's live and it's Saturday night, but it's not Saturday Night Live. That's a different show. It takes place in New York City. R.I.P. Don Pardo. We lost him in 2014. I hope to entertain you guys as you drive, to have fun on your Saturday nights. We got a couple great shows you could go to. The option's open. Right now at Sandrini's, Crooked Folk is probably warming up. One of those bands is warming up. It's a $5 show. It's Phantom Stranger show. There's also a reggae show tonight at the Elements venue, the Ice House, where the Sizzler used to be here in Bakersfield. They're doing reggae shows out of there now. Savage Radio's own DJ Shag is playing, along with Amity Flow and Irie Essence. Bwah, bwah. Aye with your bumba clot. I'm probably blowing all the levels, all the compressors. It is a reggae show. It's all ages. It's tonight, 8 p.m. That show's already happening right now as we speak. I guess since this is the first episode, I'm coming back, and the first episode I'm ever recording for the sake of podcasting and putting on the internet, I figured I could introduce all of you listeners to who I am, why I think I'm interesting enough to host a talk show. I grew up in Oildale, California, here. In this area, I'm a local kid. This not the suburban part of Oildale either. I grew up in the scary part of Oildale, where it's very common to see walking down the street in the middle of the summer, 100-degree heat, a very, very pale, skinny man with a giant swastika tattoo emblazoned on his chest. Just the whole thing. Size 96 font, just from sternum to belly. That's a pretty common sight in that neighborhood. I'm a little different. I wear a lot more plaid. I wear a lot more collared shirts probably, just to look different. I think I still live in that neighborhood now. The kind of bridge area. And if I was anybody else and I walked around the way I dressed, I'd probably be assaulted all the time. Assaulted Nuts, my favorite improv group. I don't know where that was going. But yeah, other people annoyed me. I didn't like skinhead dudes, so in my neighborhood, a lot of the kids, so I watched a lot of movies, a lot of TV. I had a good support system. Was able to get school. People supported my education and stuff. And I went to school and graduated school, and I'm right back where I started. I have nothing to show for it. I'm a huge disappointment to myself and my family. And I guess I started this show as a way to document my failure and remove the shame attached to it, all the personal anger I have for not being more successful or on point in my life right now. I'm a bum. I'm a hobo. I'm a millennial hobo. I'm no better than like trust fund hipsters in Williamsburg eating macaroni and cheese to the dome, just mooching, sleeping in the living room in my mom's house. That's where I'm at right now. So I started the show as a way to make myself feel better, to maybe propel myself into new things. I love popular culture. I love a lot of things. We're going to talk about stuff that I like later on here in the Best of 2014 list. Did I say what music we heard? I don't think I told you at all what music we heard. That's pretty important. We just heard Foxygen. This is all my favorite songs of 2014. We heard 666 off of And Star Power, a great double album. Do yourself a favor, find it. It's weird, it's great. It's one of my favorite albums of the year. Before that, we had some Mac DeMarco from his most recent album, Salad Days, another great record. We heard the single, Passing Out Pieces. And then Parquet Courts, some heavy stuff. I don't just like the mellow, hipstery, dry stuff. I like to get heavy. I like to get dissonant and loud. And now it's Parquet Courts, Sunbathing Animal. We heard the titular or eponymous track. If you want to be more specific about it, I prefer to say titular. Some people hate that word. Some people hate the word moist. Moist. That's some people's least favorite word. Moist. I might get a soundboard of me just saying moist. Yeah. That's the music we heard. We're going to hear plenty more Best of 2014 songs. Speaking of shame, I mentioned personal shame earlier. I was at a company Christmas situation for the station. I'm a DJ and a supporter at the station. And we had a little Christmas shindig. And I got a ride from Jake, the boss man Jake, to go down there. And I ran into some people from the station, some other people, and I was hanging out with them at first. And they'd made arrangements to sit down with me, and we were having a conversation. And they were like the first people who got there or whatever, and people hadn't come in. And I was sitting at one table at the restaurant we were at, And then I went and got a drink and came back, and I noticed some other people were there, and I was kind of cold, so I grabbed my coat and went and sat down at another table with some other DJs who had showed up to talk to them. And I didn't realize until the food started being served at our tables that I'd completely ditched the first party I was with. The people who they were kind of new to the station. They didn't know a lot of people, and it probably would have been nice for them to talk to me. I felt like such a jerk, but it was Basque family-style dinner, and I didn't want to get up. I had my soup. I had my bread. I wasn't getting up from Basque soup. So I just looked like a huge jerk to them, I imagine. It was a guy and his girlfriend, lady friend. And I probably just looked like the biggest jerk in the world, and I want to apologize to them. I'm not going to say who they are. But I remember just like them staring back at me and just this dejected look of shame that I felt for just being such a... It looked to them like I was just the most rude person ever. I sat down with them, had a conversation. Then I saw some people I'd rather talk to, and I never talked to them again the whole night. And I just feel like a really scummy person for doing that, but whatever. Some good stuff happened to me over the holiday break, though. A very inspiring moment happened to me on New Year's Day. It is a moment I'll take with me for the rest of my life, and I think I learned something very important. I was with a friend of mine. We were at a Denny's after libations, after some New Year's Eve libations, wandering around in the frigid cold around downtown Bakersfield waiting for rides. We eventually ended up at a Denny's. And all night, my friend and the group of friends we were with, they had all been playing Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas Is You on repeat, like the whole night. I'd probably heard it like 12 times before we got to the Denny's. And it was like 3 a.m. eating Denny's, which doesn't sponsor the station, by the way. Denny's is not a sponsor of Savage Radio. They have a Twitter account people seem to like. But anyway, so they were listening to Mariah Carey on repeat, 3 a.m, just on their phone speakers, as loud as they could, and everyone was having a really good time. It was a lot of fun. And the people next to us very snidely said, excuse me, please stop playing that. We don't want to hear that right now. It was two older women. And if they had just said, hey, this is kind of annoying, I'm sorry, I see you guys are having fun, but it's late and we're trying to go to sleep, I think it would have been fine if they had approached us a completely different way. But my friend, it really rubbed him the wrong way, and I love him for this. We acquiesced to their demands. We turned the music off. And my friend Alfredo my buddy steamed about this. I'll censor that. He steamed about it, and he begins going into graphic, lurid detail about CIA terror detainees being sexually assaulted by dogs, and just the most graphic. It was like an aristocrat's act of torture. Like I guess this is. He's a little bit more politically savvy than I am. I wish I had him in here to talk about it. But yeah, it was from, I think, the CIA torture report that came out a few weeks ago. It's very graphic, and the women, they were just like, "Oh my, you're weird," and then they left. And they said, "You're very rude," and walked out of the Denny's. And they walk out the door, and my buddy, he puts on that Mariah Carey song one more time. and it was the best thing ever. I wish I had the confidence. I'm not a very confrontational person, but that was very inspiring to me. I think I want to be a little more confrontational, demand a little bit more what I want in 2015, and create the change. 2008. JK. By the way, JK has a new meaning. It doesn't just mean just kidding. It means jokes confirmed. Jokes confirmed, like Donkey Kong. Alrighty then. Oh my God, I've been talking for way too long. Let's move right along with the program. Coming up next, we are going to have Garren from La Galerie Sandwich. But before that, we're going to hear some tunes. That'll be a little bit later. Here's some Ariel Pink for now. Only on Savage Radio, Kern County's only community radio station. We are back on the Earl Parsons Project, Savage Radio. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, I could hear you just fine now.
Oh, my goodness. That was a technical difficulty. All my fault. Okay. Pronounce your name for me. Are you Garren or Garren?
It's pronounced Garren.
Garren. Okay. And you have no last name? You have just a single first name?
I have a last name that my mother uses for me, and that's about it these days.
Would your last name happen to be Underwood by any chance?
I can't say that it is.
You are from the La Galerie Sandwich?
That's right. I have a gallery, an art gallery, fine art gallery called La Galerie Sandwich. It's in Chelsea, a little neighborhood in Manhattan, New York, and we deal in sandwich art.
You also represent a group called Real Sandwich Artists Against Subway.
Well, that's why I'm here today. It's Real Sandwich Artists Against Subway, or RSAS. I'm founder and executive director. We are representing sandwich artists in a lawsuit against Subway Incorporated.
You're slowing down a little bit. Okay, well, what is some of the history? What is the nature of this lawsuit? Why are you suing Subway?
I'm sorry. Well, we're suing Subway on the grounds that their use of the term sandwich artist for their employee debases true sandwich art. So we're suing on the grounds, I guess legally, that Subway creates a chilling effect on sandwich art, thereby placing an undue burden on sandwich artists and the sandwich art industry.
So what is the distinction between the type of sandwich art you're talking about and what Subway calls their employees sandwich artists?
You see, Subway seems to be mistaking the term culinary artist that specializes in sandwich with sandwich artists. Now, what we sandwich art dealers and sandwich artists refer to as sandwich art is any fine art that focuses on sandwich as its primary subject, or it could be any work of fine art created by using a sandwich.
Okay. What's some of the history of sandwich art in Western civilization?
Well, surprisingly, it didn't start in Western civilization. We could go back a little further to Edo period Japan, and in Edo period Japan, it was a very fishing-based culture. So you'd have a lot of fishermen that would be out at sea, and they would make sandwiches that were so aesthetically pleasing that they wished to show their friends back on shore. But the problem was that these sandwiches would always be eaten by the time they got back. And so what they would do is they would cut the sandwich in half long ways. A very interesting practice unique to the Edo period in Japan. And what they would do is they dip a cross-section of that sandwich in an edible dye, and then they would press it against rice paper on a board, leaving a impression of the sandwich. This art form known as gyutaku, nowadays, if you were lucky enough to find one, they go for about $1,000 per foot. So,
what are some of the most famous sandwich art masterpieces?
well, so the thing is that there's been a lot of sandwich art that's been mistakenly called something else. For example, Picasso and Kandinsky created lots of fabulous works of sandwich art that were mistakenly classified as abstracts, when in reality they're just collages of sandwich ingredients. Monet has painted many sandwiches. It's just a little hard to tell because people usually stand too close. Cezanne and Pizarro.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by stand too close? Hello.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying that that Monet painted many sandwiches and people just can't tell.
Oh, I guess in those picnics there could be a couple sandwiches, like on the beach. Yeah.
Well, no. Oh, in the park, for example, Afternoon in the Park, George Seurat. There's many fine sandwiches in that. And coincidentally, George Seurat, he got the idea, the inspiration, rather, for pointillism. Legend has it when he spilled paint on his poppy seed roll. He was so angry that he threw it against the canvas and then noticed the pattern that the paint-covered poppy seeds had left.
Okay. So your main beef, if I'm getting this right, is that when Subway calling their employees sandwich artists denigrates or makes lesser the contributions of actual sandwich artists over centuries. Do I have this right?
Not only in an artistic way, but in an actual economic way. We feel it economically. I feel it as a sandwich art dealer, and all the other sandwich art dealers that our organization represents feel it as well. Sandwich artists are feeling it. Somebody goes and says they're a sandwich artist, somebody automatically assumes that they're a Subway employee, and we feel that that's not right.
But isn't they're making art? Can't the sandwich itself be an art? Isn't there an art in making a sandwich more so almost than drawing a sandwich that was made by someone else?
That's what goes back. It goes back to the beginning of this interview with what I said. Subway has mistaken the term culinary artist. It specializes in sandwiches with sandwich artist.
That's a little so. That's what you want their employees to be called now.
They don't have to call them that. They can call them sandwich smiths. They just shouldn't call themselves sandwich artists.
Okay. So what kind of compromise can be reached in this lawsuit?
Well, right now there's not too many. Excuse me, my attorney's telling me that there's certain details I can't discuss with what we're seeking right now at the time, but let's just put it this way, that Subway could change the names of their employees, or what they call their employees now, and it would be too late. It would be too little too late. So we're still seeking some sort of monetary compensation for our lost income.
Thank you very much, Garren. I will ask you one last question before we leave. A very hot topic. Is a hot dog a sandwich? You make it with a bun. It goes. Is it not a sandwich?
Okay, well, this has really caused quite a divide, and it's quite a polarizing subject in the sandwich art community. What happened was hot dogs came along quite a bit after sandwiches, okay? And so what ended up happening was at first sandwich artists embraced the hot dog as a new form of sandwich. By all means, it actually is a sandwich. It is an ingredient between two pieces of bread. But what ended up happening was hot dog art sort of spun off into its own scene altogether. And a lot of sandwich artists really feel that hot dog art took a lot of its patronage. We had a lot of patrons that were formerly some of sandwich art's biggest supporters. We had Richard Karn, we had Rob Reiner, we had Louis Anderson, and they all become hot dog men over the years, and it's just a real shame.
Thank you very much, Garren. You are an advocate for the group Real Sandwich Artists Against Subway and a curator at La Galerie Sandwich. Thank you very much for your time, sir.
Thank you, Earl. Nice talking to you.
Goodbye. All right. That was fun, right? That's not what I wanted to happen. That's not what I wanted to happen yet, computer. See, they don't know. The technology doesn't know. We're going to move past it. We're going to evolve. We have to go to a break right now. Savage Radio is brought to you in part by these sponsors. You're listening to 89.7 FM, KSVG, Savage Radio, Kern County's only community radio station. I am Earl Parsons. This is the Earl Parsons Project. It is my talk show. Can we hear Anthony?
Maybe.
Yes, we can. How are you doing?
Fantastic.
I am joined by assistant editor of the Sacramento News and Review, a great weekly news publication bringing the hard-hitting stuff, just like Michael Keaton in the paper. But thank you for being with us, Anthony.
Oh, my pleasure. Absolutely.
Now, I wanted to bring you on because we tend to fly in the same circles. We went to college together, and I noticed we tend to fly in the same circles on Twitter, the same kind of like leftist irony Twitter that I tend to love. And a lot of those guys talk about bad journalism, and I thought that was something that might be fun. We're going to talk about some of the worst journalists in America today. Are you excited, Anthony?
Oh, but of course, I just spend my entire day thinking about horrible journalists and how often I can just wish I had any sort of acclaim like they did.
Oh, of course. So I'm going to let you get started. Who are some real scumbags?
Well, generally, it's really easy for me to tune a lot of them out. I'm lucky enough that, I learned to stop doing the hate follow because it's just bad for your heart. So sometimes I stop paying attention, but the ones that continually catch my eye, it's the most common one right now is Charles Johnson. I think everybody's on the leftist Twitter sphere has been really heated about this clown recently, and I think it's with good reason. Do you want to give a quick go-over on Charles Johnson, or should I?
This guy, he's kind of a parody of a human being. If you see a picture of him, he has like a bright red beard and like a stupid, scowly face that just looks like he smelled something nasty like all the time.
It's a massive jaw that he has under there too, but it's made out of dough, I think.
Yeah.
It's an inhuman. It's such a dense beard too. It's really like, it's almost animal-like in its density.
Well, explain why we feel justified in making fun of this guy's appearance.
Well, his appearance, I'll admit, sometimes I have a little bit of a hard time making fun of his appearance because I'm sensitive like that. But one of the things is this is one of the dirtiest guys out there when it comes to how he treats his subjects and what his subjects are. He really loves to punch down. He really loves to victimize victims. One of his most recent notable flops, actually, and there are many flops. This guy can't get a story right to save his life. But one of the most notable ones was related to the Rolling Stone UVA rape story.
Yes,
and the entire controversy around that. He decided that he had discovered the true identity of the subject of that story under the pseudonym Jackie. And not only did he deliver this ultimatum to Jackie that she had to, and an ultimatum through Twitter, no less, like this hideous subtweet as if she was going to reply to that. She had, say, like 24 hours or some such to come clean. And then he posts all these, she of course doesn't come clean. And he then goes and posts this information that he pulled off of like Pinterest or something. Just like the first picture he could find of somebody at a rape rally in 2000, or an anti-rape rally in 2011. And he's just like, yep, this is her. This is her, and look how she's got this. She's been so anti-rape for so long, she's just crazy about it. And people are immediately like, well, what the hell are you talking about? That's not even, no. And that person came forward and was like, no. And
it's really weak, soft talk. It's like he's like a millennial diehard villain. I don't know what his ransom is.
Yeah, but no, Tim Curry would never play him though.
I think it's funny. He started out as a Breitbart guy. He was a Fox News guy. He owns a website called gotnews.com, which initially only got traffic because people thought it was a Game of Thrones fan website.
And it's somehow actually worse than a Game of Thrones fan website.
Do you not watch Game of Thrones? Are you not into the Song
No,
of
I
Ice and
don't
Fire?
I don't care at all about it. I'm sure it's cool.
Yeah.
But
Are you
care.
into medieval? Do you like medieval stuff at all? Is that your bag? I know some people just hate medieval. Anything.
You know, I'm not really
Fantasy.
much for high or low fantasy, but I think it's more just because I was never really exposed to it aside from video games. So you know, I'm not gonna talk garbage on it, but it's not really my area of expertise.
Yeah, Diablo. I think Diablo is a pretty bad example of what fantasy has to offer.
The most I've ever been in is Demon's Souls, so you know.
And that Japanese is a little different. Japanese stuff.
Yeah, I can imagine.
This is a good transition. I wanted to talk a little bit about Nero and some of the Gamergate journalists. Do you want to explain? The whole thing exhausts me. Do you want to explain what Gamergate is? I didn't want to put on Facebook that we were talking about this because it would have just been a disaster. But
yeah, no, and honestly, like Gamergate's one of those things that its entire. I mean, you can talk about it a million ways, but one of the things that's most notable about Gamergate is that it's this amorphous hydra where you can't really ever attack anything about it. And to talk about it is to get a bunch of trolls to descend upon you. And it's a constant shifting of the goalposts, and it's all rhetorical. But one of the things that's most noteworthy about it is that whatever the heck Gamergate is, it has resulted in high amounts of online, I'm going to use the term violence, online violence against people. Not in the sense that anybody has actually been physically assaulted, thankfully, but where people's addresses are being leaked, you know, they're being doxxed, as they say. People don't feel safe in their homes. People are getting very threatening messages and whatnot. And it's happening on both sides. But it's also it's this large... Well, I said I wasn't going to curse, but that was going to...
amorphous.
It's this amorphous mudslinging festival that it's really hard to discern exactly what's going on, aside from the fact that it's brought up to the forefront a lot of conversations about sexism in video games and a lot of critical issues that come with critiquing video games as a legitimate art form, along with conversations about shoddy video game journalism and the practices therein. But that conversation has become kind of a punchline for anti-Gamergate people too.
So transitioning into Nero and sort of men's rights journalist, describe who he is and what role that sort of men's rights advocates have had in hijacking the sort of ethics and journalism debate that this whole thing was started on, or whatever.
Well, what's kind of sad about a lot of it is that when we're talking about Nero, we're talking about a guy named Milo Yiannopoulos, I think is his last name. Might be totally mispronouncing that.
Yeah.
But he's a guy who is a Breitbart journalist, which is already just like, you're already on the wrong foot. Breitbart, you're done. We're done talking about
this list could have been all those type of people.
Right, and it's worth noting Chuck Johnson was one of them too, but now Breitbart thinks Chuck Johnson is insane. Like, let that sink in. But Milo is this incredibly misogynist, incredibly vile human being. I feel very comfortable saying that much. Who really, you know, he's like a lot of people before this whole Gamergate thing. He never played video games, or not that he ever talked about. He openly clowned on gamers quite a bit. Gamergate came around, noticed that there was a lot of anti-feminist sentiment in Gamergate, and hijacked a large portion of that population for his own followership and his own things. He's actually published like one video game review, and I'll admit that I haven't read it, but I've heard from many people that it's very like he's never played a video game before. And it's one of those things where him and a lot of other journalists, in scare quotes, have really latched onto the movement because of those anti-feminist people. They see it as this sort of
a market. It's a market.
Right.
It's a new
well,
market.
it's a market for the journalist. It's an audience ready to go for them. They have the snake oil for these people. And for those people, it's like, these are the people of the media who are going to fight with us against the social justice warriors who have taken over the mainstream media. And it's, it's just this beautiful little, oh man, another curse word that I was about to throw out there.
Save them. I like it. The nice
little
restraint.
circle
I love
of
it.
people patting each other on the back, I guess. Imagine something more foul than that, but
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, and we've got a lot of people like this who are involved in it, who have taken what you could construe as some Gamergators' good intentions and just totally taken it and hijack their idealism for their own profit, much like most of the media does in general. It's just a much easier to spot little microcosm.
In fact, there was a Heritage Foundation video about sort of Gamergate issues early on. I can't remember the name of it, but it was a video. It's part of like a anti-feminist video series that's funded by the Heritage Foundation and Citizens United, basically.
Oh, good. You got to love the Heritage Foundation. Anytime anybody looks at something they do and is like, no, look, I got this story from this, independent foundation. Like, anybody who ever takes anything that comes out of there seriously, I get scared for. But then again, that's why they're good at what they do.
Now, when I was making this list, I thought about what makes a reporter bad, and I think the news gathering process is important. You need to interview sources, but when you take it a level too far and you infringe on other people's privacy for the sake of a story, it really makes you out to be just a disgusting person. I think a good example of this is a guy named Darren Rovell. He from ESPN. He's just a snitch. He doesn't have any actual stories. His thing, he was very critical of a Notre Dame sophomore. I believe he was a running back or a tight end who was dating Lisa Ann, a porn star, and was seen at the game. And he was one who put this and just sort of sensationalized it on the front and things like that. I feel that the person's personal privacy supersedes any kind of news value that would have had. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, and actually, this is one of the reasons that I kind of transitioned over to being an editor after taking so long of being, I was a beat reporter for years and whatnot. That very question, I feel like in the vast majority of journalism, you have that problem of taking, of doing harm to your subjects by representing them in a certain way or by representing them at all, because you can never capture a person's identity as a whole when you do that sort of thing. And then in particular, what you're talking about here is not just the harm that you do when you write a story, even as a decent journalist. You're talking about those guys who just run with it, who just don't care. And I think that's one of the major ways that you can spot a journalist who can't be trusted. And that's, I think there are a lot of other ways that can be independent of that, but I would really agree that that's one way to tell, one of the scum suckers.
Exactly. So I wanted to transition into talking about Fareed Zakaria and people who get away with plagiarism, and explain to people a little bit of this, who Fareed Zakaria is and what he's been accused of.
So Fareed Zakaria is a well-respected CNN host. Oh, Lord, the publications he's worked for are escaping me right now, but he's written quite a few pieces for...
He's written for Slate. He's written
that
for
shouldn't count
lots
for
of
anything,
people.
though. Sorry.
Fair enough.
So, no, but he's well respected. He's been published in print formats and in visual formats.
He used to have a column in Time magazine, of all places.
Mm-hmm. And so he was busted for repeated cases of plagiarism, well, just throughout his career, but always seemed to make it by. And then, it was about, 4 or 5 months ago, this little blog popped up called Our Bad Media, which is run by two Twitter users who remain pseudonymous. Blippo Bloppo and Crushing Port.
I love saying it every time. It's so great.
Yeah, absolutely wonderful guys.
Hearing old white men say that on television is the best.
Yeah, Blippo Bloppo, the fish eating a pill, and Crushing Port, the robot. Although he just changed his avatar. Anyway, they just doing due diligence, doing some basic scanning of the texts. They were able to find that Fareed had lifted large portions, pretty much near word for word, just rewording a few things to get him out of maybe a technical explanation of plagiarism, but clearly an embodiment of plagiarism. He has just again and again and again, before and after publications had said that they had used their best editors to vet him, he had been plagiarizing this whole time through. And what was really interesting was that because these Twitter users refused to reveal themselves, with their full names and locations and who was paying them, all of these news organizations, many of them either refused to cover the story or refused to give it fair play. There are a few people like Steve Buttry, formerly of DFM, which was or Digital First Media, which owned the Chico Enterprise record while I was over there. I think I met him once, but nothing of significance. Anyway, he was one of the few people who would who would give them real credence because they laid out all of their evidence. It was so obvious that what had happened was plagiarism, and it just. I could keep going on and on about it, but to cut it short, it's just a very interesting note of how the mainstream media runs cover for its extremely successful figureheads. Because, one, the main reason you don't see Fareed getting taken down is because the value to CNN's bottom line is not, like, the value in credibility for taking him off the air or chastising him is not worth losing his real viewership numbers.
Exactly. So, another transition. We're moving along. We're steady, chugging along.
I'm with you.
You better be. I wanted to just summarize an article I read. Accuracy is obviously an important part of news writing, and this is an article from the publication Deadspin. 46 times Vox totally effed up a story is the name of the article.
I adore this one. I loved that piece.
Yeah, it's pretty great. Explain to people a little bit what Vox.com is. It's a new publication.
Well, what Vox does is that they come at you with the concept that you are unable of understanding history or what you read last week in comparison to what you read this week. And then they take that presumption and try to feed somebody else's dribble back to you, and they get it wrong every time. And this is what we call explainer journalism, boys and girls. We take all the meat and bones off of something, try to put together this gnarled skeleton and put it back to you so you can have some understanding, but it's definitely not like it's made from different animals, it's not what it's supposed to be.
So I wanted to read it. They have a very rigorous corrections process, which to their credit, but they get a lot of things wrong, very big things wrong. A couple big ones here I wanted to read. This is from an article called 11 Crucial Facts to Understand the Israel-Gaza Crisis.
Yes, this one.
Correction, an earlier version of this post suggested there was a bridge connecting Gaza and the West Bank. Various plans to do this have been floated, but the bridge was never actually built. Now, for people who are geographically uninformed, the space between Gaza and the West Bank in the Middle East, it would have to be like the biggest bridge in the world to make this. So whoever wrote this article completely made up a bridge that never existed.
Yeah, I mean, it's like suggesting that there's a bridge, like there's an underground tunnel from California to New York. It's just like, it's just like 2 minutes of Googling. 2 minutes of Googling and then another 2 minutes of Googling and we'd be fine, Vox.
It'd be fine, yeah. Now, another one. This is the one that sort of tipped this all off a couple days ago. Tonight will be the longest night in the history of the Earth. It was the name of the article. Corrected headline, tonight will not be the longest night in the history of Earth. It was in 1912. The article originally said that due to the rotation of the Earth gradually slowing down over time, the winter solstice would feature the longest night ever. This was a couple nights ago. I got this wrong, the reporter speaking in first person. The Earth's rotation is gradually slowing on an extremely long time scale, but on a shorter year-to-year basis. Geologic factors can alter the speed as well. So basically, this is a common thing you see in a lot of news articles is journalists are mostly liberal arts people. They aren't trained at analyzing data a lot. And so you'll see a lot of numbers wrong in stories, which that doesn't excuse it, but it's a reason why it happens.
Well, and Vox has another really important problem with it, and it's that they've hired a bunch of young people who are like well-intentioned and they're go-getters and they're media savvy, but they don't know their history, and they're kind of just like, you remember those services back in the day where you could text this random number any question you had, and then they text you back the answer, and it was just some guy next to a computer just like Googling something at the speed of light and texting you an answer.
I remember this before people.
It was
like
Cha-Cha.
flip phones.
That was the name of it.
Yeah, it was like during flip phones. It was basically like an argument settler for people who had razor phones.
Right, before you could get Google on your phone. And that's what Vox is. Like, except it's guided by, on one hand, the master of Slate himself, Matt Iglesias, who can like get some good policy analysis done every once in a while, but for the most part he's just kind of an insufferable prick. And then you have on the other hand you have Ezra Klein, who actually, like, I kind of liked his wonkier stuff, and he could do some really interesting historical takedowns on things, but at the same time you've got like this strange, like, you've got this desire for speed and for analysis, and it just doesn't work. It's structurally going to keep giving you these results where you get these, like, if you look at that article, that Gawker article, multiple of those stories are, we got this totally wrong. This whole thing's just screwed.
Here's one. Can the government claim copyright in a coin design? And it says, and I quote, "This article is totally wrong. The entire premise of the article, which was that works of the federal government the government can claim copyrights. The federal government can acquire copyrights from private citizens." So this article operated on the assumption that the government had no right to claim copyrights on its own money designs, and that's just patently false.
Now, I will say, I mean, for all the clowning on Vox that we should be doing and should keep doing, at least they're open about how awful they are.
I think that's really open. You're not going to see that in a newspaper for the most part. The mistakes like that.
No, I mean, no, not really. Sometimes you could argue it's a space issue as to why that doesn't happen, but we could talk about pride too.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's pretty much it for the journalism discussion. I want to play some music, and then do you mind sticking around?
No, I don't mind sticking around at all.
Oh, that'd be great. I want to talk about the year in review. I want to talk about some pop culture stuff. I hope it'll be a little bit more fun, a little more lighthearted. We'll all celebrate. And
don't make me celebrate 2014, please. It was horrible.
It's not gonna be that celebratory. But
we're
gonna be talking about the good stuff, not the bad stuff. Let's move right along with the show. Why don't we hear from King Tough here on Savage Radio? You're listening to 89.7 FM KSVG, Savage Radio. I am Earl Parsons. This is the Earl Parsons Project. It is a talk show hosted by me and by me only. If anyone else tells you that they're the host of the Earl Parsons Project, they're lying. And they deserve...
Can I fight you for the honor of that, though?
You're welcome. Hello. I am joined, as I turn this background music off, by Anthony Siino. How you doing, Anthony?
I'm doing all right. You can hear me, right?
Yeah. You were barely audible as I had the music low.
But here I am now.
There you go. He is the assistant editor of the Sacramento News and Review. Tell people a little bit about what type of publication. It's an alternative weekly. What type of coverage do you guys do?
Well, we're just a front for all the dispensaries to run ads, and the massage shops. We also run some articles that may or may not make the city sweat a hell of a lot. We may or may not also be the only publication that opposed the mayor, who had an allegiance of, who was it? Was it Rudy Giuliani himself?
Yes.
And a bunch of other corporations trying to back his power grab in Sacramento recently. We were the only ones who stopped that. His Measure L campaign. Not stopped that, excuse me. That's being a little vainglorious. We were the only ones who opposed it. That was a long loop around to say that we're just this one little weekly that we like to shout a lot. We've been here a long time, and we're doing a lot to try and stop, to look out for those who keep getting punched by people who like punching down. Exactly.
Of course, Sacramento's mayor, former NBA player Kevin Johnson, who is a known slumlord.
Yeah, there are many things that are known about Kevin Johnson. He's a complicated figure, very complicated. I won't hesitate to say that I'm not fond of his practices and his policies. There are good things to talk about with the man, but there are also many more bad things.
Let's transition to something a little bit more sunny. Let's talk about some of our favorite pop culture of 2014. I made a list of a lot of stuff, but if there's a place you want to start, I'll go ahead and give you the floor. You're my guest, after all.
Okay, well, I will say that I was very, very glad. One of my favorite moments of 2014 was actually the finale of How I Met Your Mother.
I was never a big fan of that show, but people said the ending satisfied them that had been following it for a long time.
Yeah, I actually had never really been a big follower either. I was just really glad that it ended.
Fair enough. Yeah, but that's a show that if they didn't stick the landing, the whole show is set up for the ending, and if they didn't stick it, it would have really irritated a lot of people who spent hours paying attention to that show, and so, good for them.
Well, yeah. And as a casual observer of the show, it seemed kind of obvious to me that they wrote themselves into this corner by playing up the sexual tension between whoever that main character was and whoever that other main character that they ended up killing the mother to get him with.
Yes.
It kind of seemed like they were working really hard to, one, be sensical, and then on the other hand, satisfy shippers, which are obviously exclusive paths.
Yes, that's hard to do. And shippers are important in sitcoms now. It's one of my. I really enjoyed Parks and Rec and Brooklyn Nine-Nine, but the relationship stuff is a lot of baggage on those shows.
Has shipping ever not been a thing though?
It's kind of like, but it started with Cheers. Really, it wasn't a thing in sitcoms. I think relationships were static and people didn't move around like that, and it was also reflective of the sort of sexual freedoms of the 70s and 80s and thing as well too, though.
Right. I guess it's as you move from characters that are in stable households where they're already married from the beginning, because that's what it was earlier in the history of the sitcom. Yeah,
with Norman Lear and all that stuff. Yeah.
Right. Huh. Never thought about it that way.
So some of my favorite TV shows, we'll start there. My favorite TV shows this year, Broad City. Do you watch any of Broad City?
No, I'll be straight with you. I'm that person who doesn't watch TV.
Fair enough.
I could tell you all the show. Like, I think I watched all of True Detective.
Okay.
And I thought as a longtime, absurdist, and a long time sit in the dark corner of the room as a high schooler and think about horrible things and be a horrible person, I related to Matthew McConaughey's character of Rustin Cole.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that was pretty big for me. And also, like, getting all flibberty-gibberty when they started mentioning the Yellow King and the Lovecraft nerd and me flipping out. That was also really satisfying for me.
It does. It kind of takes the shine off of it. That speaking of plagiarism earlier, that like it supposedly is plagiarized, like huge parts of that story.
Yeah, and we could talk about a lot of things with it. I'm not about to sit here and like say it's the greatest thing in the world, but I will say, for him being a horrible despite him being a horrible person, I will watch Matthew McConaughey do anything, and I believed that before the reconnaissance. Did you ever hear of this show called Surfer Dude? That was him and Woody Harrelson before.
No.
Yeah, they had this like web series, and it was like just full of like you expected it to have a laugh track kind of thing. It was that bad. And it's McConaughey as like this legendary spaced out surfer, and Harrelson as his spaced out manager. And then they made this movie, and it's a horrible movie, and for some reason I loved it. And ever since, like when I heard of everybody flipping out about True Detective, I was like, well, if I love these guys in garbage, then no matter what, I'm in on this.
Yeah.
And I was very happy.
I think the people who had problems with True Detective were analyzing it as a type of show it wasn't trying to be. People who had problems with some of the more procedural elements, that wasn't what the show was striving for at all. And I think that's where the tension was. People wanted it to be either be a straight up crime show or be a sort of like a Twin Peaks thing, and it sort of straddled the line between both, and I think alienated some people. I know TV critics were very divided on it.
It's so clearly a character drama. What really put me past the point of being able to really criticize it was I was just so happy to hear these utterly cosmically pessimistic views being spouted on TV. I just adored that as the bitter cynic that I am.
Of course. So I'll run through some of my favorite shows. Broad City, two girls. It's like if the show Girls was funny. It's basically two girls. They get in misadventures, the millennial misadventures. Hannibal Buress is in it from the Eric Andre show and from Stand Up and the Bill Cosby thing, which we won't get into here. So wait, it's basically Girls if it wasn't insufferably white. Yeah. Well, they're both Jewish. Both the girls are Jewish, but it has a good sense of humor about itself, and there's a lot of great, funny, Upright Citizens Brigade people that fill out the cast. A lot of great comedians, and
that sounds great.
Another show I really loved, Review with Forrest McNeil, starring Andy Daly. Review. It was a show, instead of reviewing books or movies, he reviews life experiences. So he does cocaine. He divorces his wife. He goes to space. He just goes and does all these weird life experiences and gives them a rating based on 1 to 5 stars.
I totally forgot about that show. I saw an episode and I thought it was a brilliant setup. Did it ever go anywhere? Did they cancel it or what?
It's getting a season 2. It's coming back in a couple months. It's really good stuff.
Oh, fantastic.
Another one of my favorite shows, probably my favorite cartoon of this year, Rick and Morty, created by Dan Harmon, the creator of Community, Justin Roiland, who made a short for Channel 101 called House of Cosbys, which was about a bunch of people who cloned Bill Cosby and the hilarity that ensued from that. This was years before the allegations or whatever. But Rick and Morty, it's a parody of Back to the Future, but really perverted and weird. They get into like time travel and a lot of science fiction theory. If you're a fan of deconstructing science fiction tropes and good plot and story development, then it's right up your alley. Non-web stuff, or non-TV. The website Clickhole was one of my favorite things that came out this year.
Oh, the finest.
The finest. Clickhole is so great. It is a parody of websites like BuzzFeed and Upworthy. When you're on Facebook and your aunt posts something about how a koala taught itself to breathe or something and how inspiring it was. It's sort of taking the piss out of those type of shows, those type of websites and stuff, and it's really wonderful. It's put on by the creators of The Onion, but it has a way more subtle approach to satire and irony than the Onion, which is more kind of over your head. But I really enjoyed the Clickhole.
Yeah, it's strange because the beauty of the format is that they're already dealing with such an aggravated and such an obviously sentimental and emotional real news trope. It's so easy to occupy this exaggerated space like they do. Like, they actually had a quiz on Gawker to see, like, it was just headlines from clickbait websites and from Clickhole, and it mixed them all together, and it was to see how many of them you could guess were from, like, which were real headlines.
I think my favorite article I read was someone was on their deathbed. They had like an hour left to live, and with their last breath, they filled out a quiz about what Aladdin character they would be. That was the last thing that person did with their life, and it was supposed to be like so inspiring.
Was he Genie?
I can't remember what the guy's result was. Also, do yourself a favor, take the quiz. Which one of my garbage sons are you? Look up Clickhole. Which one of my garbage sons are you? It's a great quiz.
Fabulous.
There are a bunch of new podcasts that I got into. I'm starting a podcast. I love podcasts. I waste a lot of my time playing Diablo with the sound down while listening to podcasts. But the best podcast I heard this year is called The Dollop with Dave Anthony and Gareth Reynolds. They break down one topic from world history. Like one was about this guy Rube Goldberg. He was a pitcher around the turn of the 20th century, and he was just a crazy person. Anytime a fire truck went by the stadium and he was pitching, he would stop everything he was doing and run after the fire truck. If there were puppies in the audience, he would stop pitching and play with the puppies. He would go to games drunk and wild.
This sounds like baseball today, though.
If only. Yeah, they tell all kinds of great stories, like the story of 10-cent beer night in Cleveland that ended in a riot. So many great stories from American history. Do you ever hear about the guy in San Diego who drove a tank around and destroyed a bunch of property in the 90s?
What?
Yeah, it was the greatest police chase in American history. And spoiler alert, meth was involved. He was on a lot of meth.
Oh, funny. Meth has such a good reputation, though.
Yeah. Another great podcast that came out this year was Deezus versus Marrow on Complex.com. Deezus Nice on Twitter and The Kid Marrow. They're two guys from the Bronx who talk about hip-hop and culture. I call them the Hood, Statler, and Waldorf because they make fun of everyone. No one is a safe target, and they're just mean and ruthless, but so funny. And they're brilliant. Deezus versus Marrow. It is a YouTube series and audio podcast if you want to check that out.
Fantastic.
Athlete of the year, Richard Sherman for me. I love Richard Sherman. He's so great. The thing he did a couple months ago with when Marshawn Lynch got fined $100,000 and just talking about the hypocrisy of the NFL. He's the only guy in that league who is crazy enough to stand up to Roger Goodell in the NFL, and I love a guy like that. Someone who was derided for being a thug after his comments in the NFC Championship game, but proved himself over the course of the year to be a very intelligent, thoughtful, smart athlete, and we need more culturally aware athletes in our society today.
Most definitely in the NFL, no less.
Yes. Chelsea Peretti, probably my favorite stand-up special. This is the last thing I'll get into. It's called One of the Greats. It was directed by Lance Bangs, who is known for the Jackass series and for countless music videos. Basically, it sort of subverts the traditional stand-up comedy special where she has like dogs in the audience, and it will cut away to like a guy in the audience eating like a boiled egg, or weird fantasies that Chelsea has while she's performing. She's also at the top of her game in terms of her material. It's on Netflix. One of the Greats, Chelsea Peretti. She's awesome. She's on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, speaking of TV shows.
Sounds great. I'll have to check that out.
Check that out. I want to thank you for talking with me, Anthony. I felt like I was talking at you just to describe things that I like toward the end of that, and I want to apologize. But thank you
no worries.
Thank you for taking your Saturday night out to waste time with me. I appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. I mean, it's not like I put aside my drinking for you, so it's fine.
No, great. Good to hear it. I got a little bit going here too, but
fantastic.
We'll keep that to ourselves, us and the listening audience. It'll be our little secret.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have a great night.
Likewise, Earl. Thank you very much for having me on.
Thank you. I'm hanging up on you now. All right. The Earl Parsons Project continues. Let's play some rap. Rappity rap rappin' here on Savage Radio. This has been the Earl Parsons Project. I'm about to get out of here. I have to tell you what we've heard first, though. I've been Earl Parsons. It's been my talk show. I want to thank our guest, Anthony Siino. He is the assistant editor for the Sacramento News and Review, an awesome alternative weekly paper, doing the hard work out there in the state capitol. I also want to thank Garren from La Galerie Sandwich and the advocacy leader for Real Sandwich Artists Against Subway, a.k.a. RSAS. I also want to thank my friend Daniel White for our theme song. You can find him at Dano Comedy. He's a frequent guest on the Kill Tony podcast on iTunes, which is filmed at the Comedy Store in Los Angeles. What do we hear? You may be asking. Well, I'm going to tell you what we've heard. That was Death Grips. Death Grips, The Money Store is the name of that album. Blackjack is what we heard. This didn't come out in 2014. I wanted to shout out to this because Death Grips broke up this year. Another great group out of Sacramento, by the way. R.I.P. They ended 2014. Before that, we had Run the Jewels with my favorite rap album of the year, the Run the Jewels 2 mixtape. We heard Blockbuster Night Part 1. And then we kicked it off with Flying Lotus's new album, You're Dead. Cold Dead was the name of the song. Now that the show's over, there are plenty of things you can go out and do downtown. Phantom Stranger is putting on a show at Sandrini's right now as we speak. Crooked Folk, Jesus Christ Muscle Car, and If It Kills You. I have written down here, If I Kills You. If I kills you, girl. It's a $5 show. Make it out there if you don't have anything else to do. January 25th, Revolution Mother playing at Jerry's Pizza. That will be a Sandrini show. I will continue plugging that. Also going on tonight, there's some reggae at the Elements venue at the Ice House where the Sizzler used to be. Over on Chester. DJ Shag. Savage Radio's own DJ Shag, host of the Caribbean Vibes program tomorrow. He is DJing some reggae, all ages, with Amity Flow and Irie Essence. Bruh! Thank you very much for listening. I'd also like to thank, since I forgot to thank this person, Lesley Matthews for making the Earl Parsons Project logo. It looks so awesome. It's probably better than the actual show. You can find all her art at heartlesley.tumblr.com. That is the word heart, HeartLesley.tumblr.com. Daniel White provides our theme song and our music. Thank you all for listening. I have one last song for you guys. It is by the OCs here on Savage Radio 89.7 FM. Remember, Beavis is actually Butthead's son. Good night.
Even though it's great.